As we have discussed, all these big companies, especially like the names that I have already mentioned in my previous video, they are more like centralized in a manner that they can control their entire system. So in order to understand how many types of controls we have before implementing them into a network or into anything, we need to understand how many types of controls we can have and how we can use them. For example, centralized control, distributed control, and then decentralized control. So before jumping into a network, it is better to understand this control system with the example, very simple example, so that you can understand the philosophy or the crux behind it. So let's go with the centralized control system. What is it? So centralized control system can be one example I can give is imagine there is an organization, and this organization has some sort of one department who is handling everything, especially maybe kind of a data entry or maybe a system which is on maybe on their intranet, not internet, like on their LAN. Maybe this application is on-prem, it's working and providing access to all their employees. So if this application is crashed, then who is the responsible? The only responsible is the one person who is controlling the entire system. So he is like a main administrator to handle these things. He will be allowed to shut down or execute or write anything. So he has the entire control. Such kind of decision making, let's say for example, if someone needs to take a decision making from the governance perspective, it's usually called dictatorship or maybe boss. He is a boss that who can run this entire application, and he will allow people to access it. So it's something like that. And similarly, it's more like a one-man show, which means that he doesn't need any kind of a team, so that if he gets sick, then only he can come and he can turn on the system. Otherwise, you all will not able to put your data entry if this is a data entry application and so on. So I'm just giving hypothetical example. Just wanted to show you that having a centralized power is like a worst case scenario, where you have the entire power and you hold the entire power and you are the main dictator who can run the show. So in case you get sick, then you are the main responsible why you are sick. So one of the example I can give is related to, imagine a city which is being supplied by, the electricity is supplied by a powerhouse or maybe a nuclear plant, whatever you can call it, and they have one single line without a backup line. So tomorrow, if something happened, something goes maybe some kind of a bug came, or maybe a crash happened or something, maybe incident happened, then the entire city will go in darkness because there is only one line coming. There is no backup line, nothing. It's similar like a similar case when a person is sick. So he without him, nobody can access their data entry application, and unless he comes and he will allow the people to see it. So this is something like a centralized control system or centralized authority who is handling entire things or data. The other thing, other control system you can call a distributed one. So the distributed one is something, let's first go with the example of the same guy who is sick. Now imagine, even though he is sick, he must have some subordinate or maybe sub-manager who are working under him. So he might delegate his work to them. However, still he is the boss, which means that tomorrow, even if he gets sick, he still delegate these things to other people who can provide the accessibility. So which means that the organization's one department, single department, still is the main department who is running the entire show. However, they have distributed their task, and they are organizing their task between each other. So single boss selected sub manager, and then he decides to whom he should go. So this is something like delegation. Now, if we think about the load shedding example, which means that the city which is being supplied electricity by a powerhouse, and the powerhouse is still using a single line. So it is a centralized control, which means that it disconnected. But imagine there is a backup line as well from the same powerhouse, which means that one line is gone, so the other line is still there. However, it is still under centralized control, which means that they have distributed the line. Maybe the one line is active, or the other one is not active, or maybe they have distributed the electricity between these two lines so that they don't see any kind of load shedding in the city where they are supplying this electricity. So this can be done using by distributing these lines. So this is a distributed based control, you can say. The third one is more like a decentralized control, which means that the distributed one is still we have a single powerhouse which is supplying the entire electricity to the city. But in the decentralized one, we have multiple lines with the multiple backup lines with the multiple powerhouse, which means that if one is shut down, the other one can provide the electricity. If the other one is shut down, the third one can provide. So it's more like a decentralized control system. It's not centralized. So if you remember a movie called Matrix, when they wanted to go inside the source code of the architect, the entire city was actually powered by one centralized supply, electric supply building. So once they disconnect this supply, the entire city goes in the darkness. So it is something like that when we talk about a centralized version. So again, if we go back to the example of administrator, multiple admins can shut down or execute from one organization, or maybe multiple branches or multiple departments. So this can be decentralized system. So if tomorrow, if one department is not able to join them, or something happen, or the other department from the other branch can start taking care of the entire system. So this is more like a decentralized power. There's some power they can distribute, some power they can make sure that it's totally decentralized. So if in case of a massacre or some kind of issue or chaos, they can provide a backup line from the other side of the world. So this is something we can talk about. And again, here when we say a decentralized control system, the decision making is more like a voting based. It's not something like a dictatorship that, okay, I have decided and you all have to follow it. In the distributed one, I am the boss, I have decided, but I will select the managers or to decide something with me. But in decentralized, it's more like I'm not a boss or dictator. I am more like you, equal, and we all need to decide together. So the decision making is more like a democratic one in the decentralized one. From the task perspective, multiple supervisors delegating work to their teams. It's more like no single supervisor. It's more like a multiple supervisor who can delegate their work to different teams. It's not just only single teams. If and no single boss, you can say around. So this is something I thought just to explain, especially from the perspective of centralized and distributed and decentralized control, because without understanding the control philosophy, it's really hard to understand the network when we talk about a centralized network or decentralized network. So it's better to understand the concept behind it, that what type of controls we are talking about.